Hi, this is Michael from Expanse VR, and in this episode of my Unity 2021 first-person shooter tutorial series, I will be looking at the fun stuff, picking up a gun and shooting things. And if you're just joining me for the first time, click above and you can actually start the series right from the beginning where I show you how to do everything from scratch. Or if you just want to watch along, please do. I do go into depth about most things, but there will be a few things that I will be skipping over as we go through this episode, having already covered it in other episodes. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course click that notification button down below to make sure you are notified whenever I post a new tutorial for you. Now in this episode we are going to be using a couple of free assets from the Unity store. So before getting stuck into the coding side of things, what we need to do is bring in this first asset, which is this SciFi Gun by these guys, Factory of Models. They actually have two free guns that they have for offer. I'm going to just use this one for a start. So open in Unity. And I have noticed with Unity 2021, or at least my version of it, that you do sometimes have to click the link on the store a couple of times. There we go. So just click import. Now with this one here, we don't need that one, but we will take everything else in. So we're going to use this for a couple of different things. First of all, we're going to need to put it on our player so that we can have a gun to bring up. So if I just jump over to our player, hit F to bring him up or her up. Now, if we go into our SciFi Gun light, they actually have a couple of different colors that we can go from. So you just click on prefabs, gun light. So as you can see, we've got a couple of different colors here. And the first thing you'll notice is that it will come up as purple. So we just need to upgrade it. Remembering that purple just means that there's a shader error. And all we do is upgrade project materials to universal, to URP. Don't worry, it sometimes takes a little while for that to refresh, but it will be there. So there we go, we can see it here. Now what we need to do is just line him up to where we want him to view. So for me, yeah, it's about right. Sort of looking forward, I always feel that they kind of face inwards a little bit. And again, this is your personal preference. You can even have it rotating up slightly, but I think that gives it off. So yeah, there we go. And then all we do is we child it to our player. So if we push play now, there we go. He's sitting with us. Now, the problem we have here is that it's actually moving with our player and not with our look. So we actually need to child this to the main camera. So trial again. So try it again. There we go. So now where we look is where our gun's going to be pointed at. Perfect. Now, the other part we need to do is actually have the gun somewhere where we can pick it up. Oops. What is happening there? Why is my... sorry if my navigation is a bit off today. I'm used to using Blender and ZBrush, and sometimes I get confused about how to navigate around this. Okay, so what we're looking for here is a spot where we can stick our gun for pickup. Now, you can put it anywhere you want in the scene. Me personally, actually what I'm going to do is just stick it here in the room, right at the front. So I'm just going to stick it here, bring it up, and if I remember correctly, I set this door to being locked. So for the moment, I'm going to unlock him. Is lockable? Nope. And stays open just for the moment. So now, come into the scene. There's our gun for pickup. Now it's the same size as what we've got, but you might find that a little bit hard to see. So if you want, you can actually make that a little bit bigger, which is what I might do, just to make it a little bit more visual. Not much. And we just hit that R key for the scale gizmo. Okay, so next up what we're going to do is just make our pickup item just a little bit more interesting, and we're going to start that with a small little script that's going to be great for you to use on lots of other different objects that you want, and we're simply just going to call this rotate object. Pretty self-explanatory about what it's going to do, and it's great because it's just a couple of lines of code that you can just attach to any object that you want. So opening it up in Visual Studio, we don't need this one here. So we're just going to have a couple of different variables. First one is rotate Y. And this is the one that we're going to use for this particular object. What have I done? Float, sorry. Float. And rotate X. You can do a Z1 as well if you like. But for the moment, I'm just going to keep these two because that's the main ones that I will actually know. What the hell? Let's just keep it in there because we might use it later on for something else. And I just realized I should have had it that way because it makes more sense. Now, the other thing you can also do with this is we can actually make this a lot cleaner by going rotate Y, rotate Z, actually, I remember. We do it this way. Just remembering though that if you do it this way, that if I had to float for something else entirely in the script that's not related to this rotation part, that is not usually the best practice to put it in here. But because all three of these pertain to the same thing and are a float, this works and makes things a little bit cleaner. So all we need to do here is transform dot rotate new vector3 and just simply rotate X. My typing is the worst at the moment. And this will be times time dot delta time. And to be honest, if we would make this a little bit more readable and a little bit cleaner, we probably should do something like vector3 new rotation equals what we just created there, and then new rotation. Just makes it a little bit more readable. We don't need any of this, and we don't need any of this. And I just realized I misspelled that. Oh, and in case you didn't know what I just did there, if you right click on a variable and click rename, you can rename the variables all through the script so that they reflect the same name. I don't know if I've actually mentioned that in another one, so I thought I would now. So jumping back into Unity, if we click on our SciFi Gun there, add the rotate object and simply push play, we should see it now rotating. Now, the issue that you see here though is that the axes of the rotation point of the object looks like it's somewhere around about here. So it's kind of rotating in an odd way. So what we were actually going to do is remove that, creating empty. This will be our SciFi Gun pickup. If we click on our SciFi Gun, copy the position, paste the position, and there you go. You can see that it's sort of sitting in the wrong spot there. We'll move it sort of more into the middle here, so it makes a bit more sense. And then we'll drop the gun into here, add a rotate object, and there we go, nice. And as you can see, if we want, we can do some funky things like that. If you want to. So now we've got this cool little rotate object script that you can add to anything that you want very easily. So again, that's not actually necessarily, I just thought it'd be a little cool thing to add to it. So I did. Now, before doing the next step, which is actually picking up the gun, what we're going to do is stylize this a little bit more. And I must admit, the next step is probably a little bit over the top, but it does introduce people, especially if this is the first time using Unity or you're very new to Unity. This is going to be your first introduction into the particle systems, which play a very big role in games with Unity, actually games in general. So again, we're going to use a free asset from the asset store. And both these asset store ones that I'm using, I will provide a link down below. Actually, there's going to be another free asset that we're going to use as well. Yep, it's just free asset day today. So this is one here is this particle system from SKJ. They have a few cool other ones in there as well, though I don't think they've actually done anything for a while. It does say Unity 5.3.5, but it is mostly just a particle system, so it does work in Unity 2021. So once again, open in Unity, do it again, and import. And in this instance, we want the animations, the materials, the models, the plugins, the prefabs. We don't need the scene. We do need the textures. You can keep the README if you want to have a look, and just click import again. Now this comes up here again, just telling you that there's been an API change. That's fine. Just click yes, just for these files. Cool, and we're done. So this is found here in the particle ones. We're looking again for the prefabs. I'm going to be using the magic ring. I think it's the first one or the second one. I'll find out in a second when we put it out there. Nope, not the blue one. Again, this is your preference. You can use whichever one you want. I think I just did the same one again. Yes, I'm looking for the red one. Red one to go with the red gun. So, as you can see, it's a little bit big. So, pulling it in again, we had the position before. So, actually no, we need the position of the SciFi pickup this time. So again, copying the position. As you can see, it's going to affect the rotation, which is really weird. I didn't click on rotation, but I did it anyway. Again, hitting the E for the rotation tool. If you hold down Control, it'll constrain it to 15-degree increments. And we'll hit 90 degrees. Hitting W again to bring down the gizmo. And just sync it all the way until it just disappears, and then bring it back up again. There we go. Cool. As I said, you're looking at it now and you're going, this is over the top. I did warn you that this is slightly over the top for it, but I think it looks cool. And it's, like I said, it's a good way to introduce you to the particle system. Now, if we have a quick look at what's going on with this particle system itself, over here, and by the way, we can drag this now into our SciFi Gun pickup. It is a prefab with 1, 2, 3, 4 particle systems. And in fact, I think it's 5. Yes. 5 systems making it up. Actually, the top layer even has 1. So it's actually technically 6 particle systems. Now, the problem we can't just simply change the scale here. It's not exactly how particle systems work. And if it disappears like that, just click on this one here and click play and it'll keep going. I'm not going to go too in depth into how particle systems work in this one here. I will leave that for a different tutorial, probably one of the how-to series, or I might even start up a particle system series of its own. Just follow along for this one here, and it will give you sort of a bit of an idea, and I will try to explain what is going on. So the first thing I want to make sure that happens is that we scale it down a bit, which is this one here, the start size. So we need to bring it down. That's not affecting one there. Push play again. Start size, there we go. That's affecting that little white ring there. So we'll bring that one down probably to about there. Maybe even smaller. Yep, that'll do. Same with this one here, start size, 2.5. So that's that little red ring. This one has a variable start size. So this one's saying that they can start from anywhere between 0.5 and 3. So we're going to half both of those. Okay, so with this one here, we will change that one here, but we do need to change another thing to make it smaller. This is the emission shape. So the shape is actually how the radius of it is. So if we bring that in now, there we go. That's about more right. And I think that's what we're going to find with this 3 here, is that we actually need to change the shape on that one as well. So the shape is actually what is emitting the particles. So here you can see that it's a cone, it's a circle. And we just need to bring that down to line it up with everything else that's going on. But same again, we are going to change those shapes because they are too big with what's going on. And there we go. So now it's all confined to the same space as what we had. Now let's find out what does what for. So if we get rid of this, see, that by itself is almost okay. It's really this part here that is sort of making things a little bit too much. Let's see if we can do that. So we can have a look at 2 things here. It might be the start color or color over lifetime. Let's check this one first. Color over lifetime is basically, as it's self-explanatory, the color that it displays over the life of the actual particle itself. Let's see, start color, I think from memory. Yes, so color over lifetime actually overwrites it. And what we're going to do here is we're actually going to bring down that opacity just a smidge. And same with this one in here. This is barely anything anyway. So there we go, still quite there. I still feel like this is a little bit too much for what we're trying to do. I still think we need to bring that down just a smidge more. So it's just a hint of a color. There we go. And what about this ring? Where's this ring coming from? Is it this one here? Yes, this white ring. What just happened to that white ring? Why has it disappeared on me? Cool. Has this got color over the lifetime? Yes. Okay, let's reduce this down. And let's reduce this down too. Where's that? Ah, because the duration is ridiculously long. There we go. That's a little bit better. And I think we've got this final ring, which is that red ring. I think that one as well. We can just reduce that down slightly. There we go. Okay, that was a very, very long process, and it's up to you, just muck around with it. I can tell you now, particle systems are just one of those ones where you just need to keep playing around with it, trying different things, break it, unbreak it, and the more you use it, and the more you play with other prefabs, which is why I decided this way was a better way, playing around with someone else's work to see what they've done, and then try and muck around with it is a good way to learn what each thing does. Okay, so now that we got that working, let's make a prefab of our SciFi Gun pickup so that we can use it at a later time. So into our prefabs folder, SciFi Gun pickup goes in here. So now we've got that there. And what we can do to clean this up is we're actually going to create a... No, we'll do that later on. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is actually go to our player, find that SciFi Gun, and actually disable it so that it's not visible. So we want to start the game off with no weapon, and then we're going to walk through that door, find our first weapon, and go shoot some things. So jumping into our scripts folder, we're actually going to start tidying things up a little bit. So for the next two ones that we're going to do, we're going to create a folder called items. And we're going to create two scripts in here. And this is where we're going to see, oops, not folder. Create script item. Create script weapon. And this is where we're going to start showing you how inheritance works. If you haven't done it before, again, I should be doing a how-to series on inheritance at some point. But for the moment, we're going to briefly touch on it and you'll see how that works. So before I forget, we will attach to our sci-fi pickup weapon. And then the first one we're going to do is jump into the item script. Now, being a base class, we don't need to do too much. But the first thing we need to do, we won't be needing these. And we will do a lot more with this class later on, but all our items will be inheriting from this one. And the first thing we're going to do though, because it's going to be inheriting, is that we're going to call this abstract. Now, there's a little bit more to it, but basically what an abstract class is, and the reason why we use it, is that you cannot instantiate this class directly. You actually need to have another class inherit from it, and then use the functions and variables from this particular class. So you'll never attach an actual item script to any of your objects. As you'll see, we're going to make a weapon class, and we're going to inherit from this class. Now, the only thing that we're going to be doing, because all items that we're using can be picked up, is that we're just going to create that functionality. And what we're going to do is an on trigger. And we're going to say this.gameObject is false. Now, if you want, you can go in and just do a destroy object. But we may have a few other things later on, like certain things that pop up over time or may move around. So it's better just to get in the habit of deactivating it. And the other part we want to do, because we may want to use this on trigger enter function in some of our other objects, is we just need to change this to a virtual protected function. Now, the first part of this method is the virtual part of it. And simply put, a virtual method just allows any subclasses, and a subclass is a class that inherits from another class. So for instance, the weapon class that we're going to create, it just allows them to override this particular method as needed. And the second part is the protected keyword. A protected member is accessible within its class and any classes that derive from it. So now that we've got that item base class sorted, we are now going to create our weapon class. And the very first thing that we do is that we change this from a mono behavior to an item. And the thing is, with our item class, which I need to say before I forget, it already inherits from mono behavior. So this weapon here will inherit from item, which inherits from mono behavior. So we get all the functionality of my mono behavior plus this functionality of item. So basically, when we use mono behavior, we're doing the exact same thing as what we're doing here now with item and weapon. And this is what inheritance essentially is, and is one of the fundamental components of object-oriented programming. Now, again, we're not going to have too much involved in this one here. And again, we don't need these ones here, so we'll get rid of it. And we don't need either of these, in fact, as well. So we're going to be creating pretty much everything from scratch. The first thing that we are going to be doing is, though, an enum weapon type. And again, if you don't know what enums are, right above now, you'll be able to see the link to my how-to video on enums, which explains in depth about how these work. So here we're going to have two declarations, bolt gun and laser gun. And at the moment, we're not going to really worry about the laser gun. What we're going to be using is the bolt gun, but it just gives us an idea of what is there. We're going to create a serialized field of weapon type. And this is just going to allow us to declare what sort of weapon this is in the inspector. And now we're going to get to our on trigger enter. And you're going to see that this is going to come up with a bit of a notification letting us know that we already have one on trigger enter inherited. So what we actually want to do is, instead of having before void, we're going to do override. So we're going to remember what we said with the item. When we have it as a virtual, we can override it. Now this is going to cause an error though, because it's going to tell us that that there's a mismatch between what the access level is for our item on trigger enter and for our weapon one. And all we need to do is change this from private to protected, and we're all good. Now, what we want to do here is we want to utilize what's going on in here already. So what we do is call base, which means this base is referring to our base class. So it's going to call everything in here on trigger enter, and we need to pass in that collider because this one here requires a collider as well. So as we add to this here, it will automatically be called from this base on trigger enter method call here. And the only thing that we really want to do at this stage is check to see if the other dot tag equals player. I don't know why they just auto-filled like that. And just checking. Yep, we've already got it set to player, so that's good. And what we are going to do here for the moment is just print, how about weapon type picked up. So now if we jump into our game, all being equal, what should happen now is that our gun should be destroyed, but it's not. Why is it not? Okay, just check the console, no errors. A SciFi Gun has its weapon script. you know what will help? We actually need a collider. And in this instance, I am going to use a sphere collider. Yeah, that looks pretty, yeah, I think that'll work that there. And is trigger. So now we should work. Door opens. Boom. There we go. We've now picked up our item. We just now need to let our player enable the gun. So we just need the player now to enable the gun that he's holding. So going back to our scripts, we're actually going to create a new folder called player. And we're going to place the player controller in there. And we're going to create a new one called player combat. And we'll assign that to our player. And what we're going to do here as well is we're actually going to make a prefab of our player, as this will be needed later on. And as a quick cleanup in here, we're going to create a folder called pickups. I'm going to place this up here. I like to keep it alphabetical. And we'll place our pickup in there. And in case you're curious what this is here, this just means that once we click on this one here, you can't actually select these items in the scene. So this is what's stopping me from accidentally clicking on our actual scene. But pickups, I've still got it, so we can. So if I want to, I can pick up on our object, but nothing else. So going back to our script folder, to our player, let's launch our player combat script. Let's open up our player combat script. Now we won't need this one, but we will need the system collections at a point. Now the first thing that we need to do is we're going to create a serialized field to store our guns that we are holding. So this is going to be an array of weapons. Well, actually, sorry, it's an array of game objects called weapons. And we're also going to need a couple of other components, but we'll worry about them in a second. The thing that we need to do, we won't need the start function, but we will need the update one for when we do the firing. So we are going to create a public method called setWeapon. And we already know that we're going to be able to have different weapons that we pick up and utilize. So what we can do is utilize that weapon enum. So weapon.weapon type, and we will pass in the type of weapon that we're setting. And for the moment, we're only going to have one weapon. So we're just going to use a simple if statement. And in this case, we're going to say if the weapon type that has been passed in equals weapon.weapon type dot bolt gun. We're going to then look at our array, and at the moment we've only got one item that we're going to store, and we'll set it to true. Again, if you're a little bit more advanced and you're following along with this, you're going to go, hang on, there are better ways to do this. We will get to that later on, but for the moment, for the sake of what we're doing here, we will use that. And if we save, jump into our weapon class, we're going to change this to other.gameObject. And I know I said not to use getComponents, but for the sake of prototyping, as we do know the better way of doing this, we are going to use a getComponent. And what we're going to use, player combat dot set weapon, and it will be this weapon type. And the only other thing that we're going to need to do now is go to our player, and in our weapons, we'll add one to it, and we're going to drag in our SciFi Gun. Oh, yellow. I thought the color was a little bit off. That's fine, we'll use that for the moment. You get the idea. So now if we push play, we're going to walk through. There's our player. Pick up a gun, and there we do. We got it in our hand. Awesome stuff. So that is it for this episode. At the beginning of the video, I did mention that we would be shooting our gun, but because we're sort of dragged out to over half an hour, I am going to leave that to the next video, and we'll get stuck into it, looking at a particle system for the gun firing, how it fires, its interaction with objects around us. So thank you very much once again for joining me. And if you want to discuss this episode or of any other Unity project you're working on, please feel to join me on my Discord channel. The link is below. And thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and share to help grow our beautiful Unity community. And don't forget to hit that subscribe and notification button below to make sure you get to see our next video. See you shortly.